So recently I stumbled on a YouTube video that I thought I would keep for a reaction video for my channel MGN. You may ask yourself why? Well, the reason is simple, because it is called exposing lies about life in the Philippines. I mean, you guys have probably noticed the sheer amount of YouTubers and YouTube videos only saying positive things about the Philippines. I call that positive toxicity, okay? I just came back from the Philippines. Well, it's been a few months now, but I did visit the Philippines, and as a matter of fact, I made a video about the Philippines, about the 20 things I noticed about the Philippines. And I did not have only good things to say about the Philippines. I mean, there were the positives and the negatives. The majority of you guys agreed with me, but there were still some haters that disagreed with me. For instance, about the obesity, of the Filipino population that I noticed and that, jumped at me when I arrived in the Philippines, So I'm hoping that this person is gonna perhaps mention some of the things that I noticed. And I really hope that this person is going to be 100% honest, and say everything, because I'm like that, right? I'm not afraid to say what I have on my mind, And I'm not scared of the bashers and haters and the trolls and everything like that. So yeah, I'm excited about this. But before we start, maligayang pagbabalik sa aking channel. Ako po si Ovela. I'm a sound engineer, beatmaker, and content creator on YouTube. And without further ado, let's jump right into it.
YouTubers are lying to you about the Philippines. I have a unique perspective because my family is from the Philippines. Today we're going to break down the pros and cons, and by the end of this video, you may realize that the Philippines may not be for you. So first I want to talk about the pros of living in the Philippines. Number one is definitely the cost of living. I think it's a little more expensive than Thailand and Vietnam, but it's still nowhere what you would be paying in Europe or...
I did visit Vietnam right before I visited the Philippines, and yes, I did notice that the Philippines was more expensive than Vietnam, and you can notice it right away just with the cost of Grab rides, Grab fares.
The West. Because most expats are only going to be really staying in Makati or BGC, it's kind of hard to talk about Philippines as a whole because those are really just bubbles, and that's where I guess the people with money in the Philippines live. It's not really indicative of the rest of the Philippines. Of course, things are a lot cheaper in the provincial areas, but I don't think most expats are going to be spending time here. So rent in these areas are going to be ranging from maybe around $700 a month to upwards of maybe even $1,500, $2,000 depending.
Yes, I am currently looking for a place to stay in the Philippines because, as you know, I will be moving to the Philippines for at least 6 months and perhaps later move, all the way to the Philippines. And yes, this is true. The prices range from 900 to 1,800. Yes, it is cheaper than the West, but it's not that much cheaper, especially if you want the same type of quality.
What you get. Also, having people come and cook for you, clean your house, watch your kids, all of those services are extremely cheap. Filipino people are absolutely amazing. They're some of the most friendly and hospitable people that you will ever meet in your life. However, they can be quite problematic, which we will talk about later in this video. The women here are...
Okay, I wish he had spoken about that right now, because I would not call them friendly, I would call them happy. I would call them really nice and sweet, hardworking people, but they are not the friendliest. I'm sorry. That's not the feeling that I got from the Philippines. They're really nice and sweet and helpful and everything around that, but they're not the friendliest.
beautiful, but I think it depends on your taste. For me personally, I don't find the women in Manila that attractive. However, in Cebu, surprisingly, the women were extremely beautiful.
Oh, I haven't
The women
visited
here are a
Cebu
lot
yet.
more marriage-minded because of the Catholic
Yes,
values,
more
especially the
traditional.
ones from the province. So a lot of them want to meet a guy and have kids and be a stay-at-home mom. Age gap relationships are a lot more accepted here. So that's why a
Yup.
lot of retirees come to the Philippines, because 50, 60-year-old men can get with a 19-year-old or a 21-year-old, and it's quite normal. It's maybe not as safe as some of the other Asian countries, but compared to Latin America, the Philippines is very, very safe. You may have to worry about slight pickpocketing here and there, but a lot of the crime is targeted. For example, like a political assassin.
Yeah, a lot of you really, kind of scared me and warned me about the Philippines, before I visited the Philippines. But honestly, guys, I mean, I did not, yes, I was living in BGC for those 3 weeks, but I also visited a lot of other regions in Manila, right? And I always felt safe, to be honest with you guys. Like, I did not feel like I was in danger or that. I mean, yeah, I had my hands in my pockets just in case I would, someone would dare to pickpocket me. But nah, I never felt unsafe in the Philippines.
Nation, or you mess with the wrong syndicates. If you're just an average tourist, nothing's gonna really happen to you. There's access to a lot of good international.
Actually, it's pretty strange. Recently, I visited Barcelona for a whole week, and I have to admit that I felt not unsafe in Barcelona, but I felt like I would more easily get pickpocketed in Barcelona than in the Philippines.
Food. Surprisingly, there are a lot of Western options in the Philippines, but because it's an Asian country, there's also a lot of Japanese, Korean, Chinese, a bunch of different Asian foods. And Filipino food is awesome as well. Sinigang is my favorite soup
Yes,
of all time. BGC
sinigang.
specifically has a growing entrepreneur
That's cool.
scene, so if you're looking
Filipino
to network
food
and
is
meet
the best.
like-minded people, that is a great place to do it. One of the biggest pros is that it is an English-speaking country.
Oh,
so
yeah.
coming there as an American or someone from the West, it's a very easy transition for us.
It's a
very
strength.
easy to get a long-term visa there. The Philippines also has a lot of direct flights to anywhere in the world because there are so many Filipino workers overseas. There's a lot of
Not
beautiful
to Montreal.
beaches. There's a lot of natural beauty in the Philippines. And if you have the money, the healthcare is not that bad. And if you're super into music, singing,
Ooh,
dancing,
it's
karaoke,
the best place to
Philippines
be
is
in.
one of the best places.
Oh,
for it.
yeah.
Karaoke and Filipinos are like peanut butter and jelly. They freaking love their karaoke there.
Another reason why I'm moving to the Philippines, because my love for music and just the fact that I have a channel that is, that talks a lot about music, it just makes sense for me to be in the Philippines.
All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. Most men that go to the Philippines are not going for the culture or the views. They're going for the women. And this is a complicated topic because I personally have no issue with the passport bro movement and even all of these older.
So I went to the Philippines not for the views, not for the women, but I went for Filipinos and for the country. I just wanted to finally visit the country that I've been so interested in for so many years, and I've been talking about it for so many years and discovering through a screen for so many years, right? But in the end, to be continued.
Tired guys come to the Philippines to marry a younger girl. A lot of people make the argument that there's exploitation going on. I don't really see it that
The
way.
passport
it's
bros?
two consenting adults agreeing to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
And they're both getting something out of it. The man's
Exactly.
getting a young, beautiful wife, and then the woman can essentially take her whole entire family out of poverty. Because it's
Yeah.
quite common that as soon as she gets married, the man takes care of the rest of her family. I think the biggest issue with a lot of passport bros, they conflate sexual tourism with actual dating. A lot of these older retirees go to the Philippines and they're not trying to sleep around with a bunch of girls. They're just trying to find a younger,
They're
more attractive
trying
wife.
to find
they
the
really
right
have
girl.
that long-term stability that a lot of these women are looking for. Personally, I don't think that's really an issue.
I
Now,
like
I
this
will
guy.
agree that there are a lot of sexual tourists going to Thailand and the Philippines, but this is an interesting thing because unlike Thailand, where a lot of creators go there and sexualize the women, I think in the Philippines, the Filipino women also sexualize themselves. One of the biggest culprits of this is the Filipina P. There's a lot of videos online about
The man is dropping names. Thank you, boy. Oof, he's gonna become one of my favorite YouTubers. I love his honesty. the YouTube game lacks so much of honesty. Like seriously, there is too much positive toxicity in YouTube. You know, whether it be in the reaction, YouTube realm, or just YouTube in general. Love it. Drop the truth.
Dating Filipino women, a lot of them are sex related. They're made from Filipinos themselves promoting that to the world. So I don't think like a lot of foreigners are going to the Philippines specifically to try to sexualize the women, the same way that a lot of people are doing in places like Colombia. So let's get into some of the pros and cons of Filipino women. Number one, they're extremely diverse. It's this beautiful mix of races that is very physically appealing to a lot of people. And that's why they've won Miss Universe so many times. A lot of the women here are loyal and very marriage-minded because of the Catholic roots, and especially the one from the provinces are still raised with traditional values. They are definitely a lot less promiscuous than Western women, and the country itself has a lot of strong Catholic values. A lot of them speak English, which is a plus, and they are incredibly short. I think the average height for the women in the Philippines is like 5 foot, and the average height for a guy is 5'4". So if you're a short king, 5'5", 5'4", it's quite easy to find a partner there. Shout out all my short kings. They're also super fun at parties, similar to Black people and to Latin people. They're out there dancing, they're singing, their karaoke is always brought out in Filipino parties, so they're just always having a very good time.
Hoy, kain kayo, okay? Nasaan si kain? Hoy, yung bata na si Soy. Kain pa, ha?
They're also extremely open to dating foreigners. Americans are definitely seen as higher status, maybe not always with the best intentions, and they are also very clean and hygienic people. But what are some of the cons? Just walk around the malls in Manila and you'll see that there are also a lot of fat people everywhere. And in my opinion, the average Filipino girl is actually not that attractive.
Boom! Another truth bomb. He actually used the term fat, okay? I said, in the broader terms that, a lot of Filipinos seemed obese to me, but he just said fat. And he's talking about women. Fat. Oh, I am loving this guy. He is very honest and it's refreshing. Wow. Personally, I thought that the women in Manila were attractive as well, But I do have to go to Cebu to see if Filipinas in Cebu are more attractive. I did meet a very, very, very attractive Filipina from Cebu, though.
Just the extremes are extremely beautiful. They are notorious gossipers. Filipinos, very similar to Latin people, love to gossip all the time.
Did you hear? Why don't you tell me? I'm going to divorce. I'm like, my God, divorce?
Divorce?
Right? My gosh.
The Philippines has a lot of social climbers because it's a very status-based society, which you can expect when there's a very high wealth inequality. So it's kind of hard to trust the intentions of a lot of women that you're speaking to, especially if you're American. I know stories of so many foreigners who arrived to the Philippines and got a girl pregnant within 2 to 3 months, and now he's stuck with that woman forever. Now, I'm not saying that the Filipinas are gold diggers, but if you've come from a very poor country with a high wealth inequality, those women will put a lot more emphasis into finances, and that applies to everywhere in the world, whether it's Ukraine, Russia, I would even argue the US, Latin America, and especially the Philippines. Because I'm Chinese Filipino, a lot of my family was born and raised in the Philippines, so I kind of have this like weird half and half thing going on. But if you're like a white or Black American, you are always going to be seen as the outsider. And when things go south, don't be surprised if all of them turn on you. And one of the big things is that if you marry her, you are essentially marrying the rest of her family. You may have to financially take care of the rest of her family. The involvement and the opinion of her family is going to be very important in the relationship. All right, so let's talk about some of the cons of the Philippines. I think the number one issue is the infrastructure. Overpopulated,
Why did he put intrusive family in the pros? That's not a pro in my book, okay? The fact that the family of the woman that you're marrying is intrusive and that you have to take care of the entire family if you marry her, That's a con in my book.
extremely dirty, very polluted. They don't have really good options for public transportation.
Wait.
All right, so let's talk about some of the cons of the Philippines.
What are the cons?
I think the number one issue is the infrastructure. Overpopulated, it's extremely dirty,
It's
very
not that
polluted.
dirty.
They don't have really good
I don't agree with that, see? I don't know, guys. Maybe because I'm originally from a third world country as well, which is Algeria, right? And I lived in a third world country, which is Kenya, which is the home of one of the biggest slums in the world, right? But when I went to the Philippines and after having visited Vietnam, Philippines seemed not very, but clean to me, okay? Vietnam was dirtier than the Philippines. Filipinos should be proud of how clean the country is. Just saying.
Options for public transportation. It's very crowded. The traffic
Very
is
crowded,
horrendous.
yes.
There are a lot of natural disasters, and it's just overall not a well-developed country. There's also not drinkable tap water, which is actually a big issue in most of Asia. Out of all the countries that I've been to, poverty in the Philippines is some of the worst that I've seen in the world. Poor wages, a big portion of the population being extremely uneducated, and a huge wealth gap between the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah,
I remember when I went as a
agreed.
kid, the population was at 80 million and it already felt super overcrowded. But just over the last 20 years, it's ballooned to 110 million. It's a population increase of almost 50%. So all of those
And you know, in my past reaction videos, every time I can mention and tell just Filipinos to be more careful and not have kids, I do so. Because kids means responsibility, okay? If you don't have the means to raise a kid, don't have a kid. Be careful with sex, okay? You gotta protect yourself. Gotta make sure to not have a kid if you can't take care of the kid. It's just logical, okay? Makes sense.
issues are way worse. A lot of people also have the poverty mentality. Here's the metaphor I like to use. Let's say you're walking on the street. You have a beautiful street that's paved right in front of you. You're allowed to look at the trees, look far into the distance, look at the weather, because you don't have to watch where you're stepping. And now imagine you're walking on a road and it's completely broken. You can't really see into the distance. You're only looking at the next step so you don't get hurt. When you have a little bit of wealth and you're in a more developed society, a lot of things are taken care of for you, so you're allowed to think a lot more into the
That's
future.
true.
But a lot of
That's
people
true.
from
Very
third world
true.
countries, because they don't have a good pathway to success, they're only focused on what's in front of them. It's
Very
very,
well said.
difficult for
Very
people
well
to get
said.
out of poverty, which is why a lot of these women are looking to marry foreigners, because if they get pregnant by a foreigner, they're able to take their whole entire family out of poverty. And unfortunately, in the Philippines, they have this mentality that in order to climb the ranks and become more successful, you have to put other people down. This, I think, comes from the fact that the Philippines is made up of a bunch of islands, so I think the people are a lot more tribal in nature. So please don't take this the wrong way when I say this, but the education system in the Philippines is extremely poor. Now, I'm not saying that the Filipinos
can't
are
speak on
dumb
that.
by any means. It's just the access to good education
I don't
is
know
heavily
enough
gatekept
about it.
by the rich. The country as a whole does not really prioritize education that much. The average IQ of the Filipino is on the lower side. The only way to get a good education in that country is if your parents can afford to put you in private schools and private universities. And this is really interesting because I would even make the same argument for the US. In the US, the average public school education is not that good, but if you're able to go to some of the most prestigious universities, which are extremely expensive, I think university in the US is a scam, then you'll get the benefits of a good education. But I think the majority of the population is quite ignorant. When you have a higher population of educated people, they get into more engineering jobs, tech jobs, things that really take the country forward. But when you have the majority of the population that is poor and uneducated, they are a lot more focused on trying to get ahead rather than trying to do what's best for the country. So one of my biggest issues is that the Philippines is a very materialistic and status-driven society. The Philippines is so diverse, so I think this can vary based on the place. In Manila, specifically Makati, I felt like everybody there was super fake and trying to be an influencer and social climb. So a big issue that I've heard from Filipino is that a lot of them are two-faced and are not afraid to backstab. If you get with a Filipina girl,
I did not stay long enough in the Philippines to feel what he felt, you know, in BGC and Makati and stuff, you know. I will tell you more once I live longer in the Philippines.
you're also getting with the rest of her family. So that means you have to put up with the notorious gossiping, a lot of the shit talk behind your back, all the judgment that comes from them as well. And the family will know everything about your business. I personally like to keep my things a little private. I have a mutual respect for my family, but they allow me to live my life. Yeah, that doesn't really happen in the Philippines at all. When I was in Cebu as a kid, we were walking along the beach, and I remember I cut my foot because there was an open metal bar just on the
Yikes.
shores of the beach, and my
That's
whole
not-
entire foot front toe was like cut up and bleeding. I remember
That's
when we were
not
younger, we were like
sanitary.
island hopping, and it surprised me that the Filipinos that were working on the boats and stuff were throwing trash and their cigarette butts into the water. They didn't really care for nature that way. Tourism is one of the
No. I mean, I have gone island hopping in El Nido and Siargao, and I have not seen any of that. Seriously, I felt like it was the opposite now. Like they would actually ask you not to litter and to put the trash in like a bag and take it with you home, stuff like that.
main ways that you
So
guys
things
make
are
money.
changing.
So why aren't you guys taking care of the environment that attracts tourists? And it didn't make sense for me. Going back to the problem that just in general, the society isn't extremely forward thinking. One of the biggest issues of the Philippines, and the locals will tell you this, is the bureaucracy and the corruption.
Oh, yes,
Philippines
corruption.
is notorious for corruption,
Yeah,
and this has
it's
happened
unfortunate.
for years. This is a good thing if you have money and if you have a little bit of fame. So if you want to get anything done, as long as you know the right person, you can kind of bribe.
It's not a good thing. I'm sorry, it's not a good thing, especially if it's in politics, okay? Because at some point, all right, if you actually use corruption to your favor, in your favor, eventually, if things change for the good in the Philippines, they will come after you. They will come after the people who have used corruption to their advantage, and you will find yourself in jail. So no, corruption is never a good thing.
Your way to get what you want, but everybody knows that there's a lot of corruption in the government. People get there and take all of the funding that was supposed to go into infrastructure. That's why the majority of the Philippines is still extremely underdeveloped. I hear that a lot of the politicians are also paid off, and there's just a lot of shadiness going on in the government in general. And I've even heard stories of police officers stopping taxis for no reason, forcing them to pay a bribe or else they'll get a ticket. Unfortunately, the system is set up to keep the rich rich and keep the poor poor. So in my opinion, the Philippines is actually a little boring because there's not a lot of things to do. The main things to do seem to be going to a mall, maybe going singing or dancing, going to the restaurant, going to a beach, but I think that gets old really quick. Something I love about Europe.
A little boring? Oh my goodness, absolutely not. That is not the feeling that I got from the Philippines. How can you be bored when you live in a country that is that diverse, that beautiful? No. To me, it feels like he is speaking from the perspective of a spoiled American, a little bit. No, I was not bored in the Philippines. If you are someone that's open-minded and you can have multiple interests, you're not gonna get bored in the Philippines. Plus, if you're bored in the Philippines, the best thing about the Philippines as well is that it's a country in Southeast Asia that is close to other countries in Southeast Asia. So if you have a little bit of money, you can just travel to another country.
Is that you can go out and you can walk around and there's beautiful parks, there's really good public transportation. You don't really need a car to do anything. In Makati, there's a specific area called Tion where all the bars and all the prostitutes are. A lot of people hype this place up, but to me, it was just so gross and grimy. A lot of the prostitutes were men. It just seemed very trashy.
I did
BGC
not
is nice
go there.
because it's a little more of a business district, but they're not really like clubs or things to do. Because I have family and friends there, they were able to
I think maybe he thinks the Philippines is boring because he's at that age. Maybe he's still in his 20s. As a 37-year-old man, I'm not looking for party and, like that type of fun. I'm looking for chill, stability, talking, creating strong relationships with people, Yeah.
Show me around, and I
that's
got
what
to
I found in
see
the
a lot
Philippines.
of the lower key spots in the Philippines that locals go to. The average foreigner is not going to know this place exists unless you have a local show you around. And if you live outside of the city, like my family does, you need a car to get anywhere. You can't just like take public transportation. You can, yes, order a Grab, or you can order like a motor taxi, and that totally works. And even something I like to do in Southeast Asia is go to computer cafes and play video games. They don't really have that in the Philippines, the same way that they do in Thailand or Vietnam or a lot of places in East Asia. This may
I don't need that. I got my own PlayStation that I will be bringing with me.
be a personal thing, but I personally don't really care for Filipino weather. I think Baguio is probably the place in the Philippines that I would like the most because it's like
the chillest.
16 to 21
Yeah.
in the mountains. Reminds me of Manizales in Colombia, which to me is the perfect weather. In the Philippines, you have heat and the humidity and a lot of dust and a lot of pollution as well.
And
I always
rain.
develop a cough when I go there. I would also say that the food quality in the Philippines is very questionable. Yes, you can go to the supermarket.
See, I developed a cough as well, but I don't think it's because of the pollution. Honestly, I did not feel the pollution. I felt like Vietnam was a lot more polluted than the Philippines, okay? Man, it was disgusting. I remember it was so humid, Vietnam, and I remember doing this, because I was hot, and I looked at my hand, and it was sweaty and just dirty. That's how polluted it was. Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam, was. In the Philippines, I did not get that feeling, but I did develop a cough. But the cough, I don't think was because of the pollution. It was because of the AC that was just everywhere. And I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining about the AC. AC is awesome. You need it in the Philippines because it's way too hot, okay? But it could make you sick
and buy some fresh stuff. But if you eat at a restaurant, a lot of the food feels like food from the US. High in calories, but low in nutritional value. It's a lot of like canned and processed food. I remember growing up, a lot of the Filipino diet came from imported food because they're an island.
I don't know about this. See, I had this talk with Filipinos. I told them that when I was in the Philippines, I ate really well and I was never hungry. And I did not eat much. Like, I would order food and I would feel full really quickly. So I don't know what he's talking about.
Yes, you can cook yourself, but one of the draws in being in Southeast Asia is not having to cook. In Thailand and Vietnam, eating on the street is cheaper than cooking at home. I mean, granted, you can hire somebody to cook the food for you, but I don't know, that just seems like a lot of work. That's why in Manila, they have a big obesity population because the quality of the food is not that good. And Filipino food specifically as well. Yes, there are some healthy options.
I don't know if it's about the quality. I think it's because they eat a lot of greasy stuff and consumerism. They eat greasy stuff, sugary stuff. That's the problem. And I feel like that's the influence of the West, of the US, unfortunately. And I think they need less of that. I think they should get closer to their Asian roots and food. I think it's better for them.
But a lot of Filipino food is fried, high in
there
sugar,
you go. Yeah.
high in fat, high in salt. Should I do Vietnam next? I'll leave my information down below if you got.
Okay, so we don't agree on everything, but that's okay. That's what I like about debates and discussions, and that's how I think YouTube should be like. It should be in the gray area, nuance. But unfortunately, it tends to lean more towards positivity, toxic positivity, No, this is good. I loved his honesty. Seriously, that was refreshing. I am glad I reacted to this. Let me know in the comment section below if you agree with me, and you can count on me to always remain honest, even if it's at the cost of the growth of my channel or whatever. I don't care. I really don't care, because at the end of the day, I can actually sleep, soundly, and not feel like I've been cheating or something, that I've been telling lies to people, that I've been putting up an act. But yeah, so I will be, living in the Philippines, so I'm gonna be vlogging a lot, and I will be making videos about my thoughts, about the Philippines again and again. So you will see. So yeah, tell me everything in the comment section below. Maraming salamat po. And of course, if you found value in this video, do not hesitate to check out my other reaction videos right here.